This week on Chuckload of Comics, we're sitting down with the guys from Charon Comics to discuss their amazing new catalog of books. So stick around, this is going to be a lot of fun. This is Chuckload of Comics. Hey, welcome to Chuckload of Comics. My name's Chuck Lindsay. We got a super fun show for today. We're going to go live to San Diego, California and talk to the guys at Charon Comics. Killer independent comic book company that's coming out. They've got some amazing titles that I've read that I really love, and we're going to tell you all about them. It's going to be awesome. We're going to do that in just a second. Real quick, if you're new to this show, if you've never watched Chuckload of Comics before, thanks for coming by. Thanks for checking it out. We could really use, more viewers just like you. So go ahead and click that subscribe button at the bottom if you wouldn't mind. Or don't. Just thanks for watching. We really appreciate having you here. And thanks for all you returning subscribers. We're up to 106. And we couldn't be happier about that. So every time we get new viewers on this show, that's just more eyes talking about, comic books, keeping the communication open, talking about books, stuff that we all love. Speaking about talking about comic books, let's have a little chit chat with these guys right here. I'm sitting here. Guys, how you doing? You there?
Good. Very good.
All right, we're streaming live from California. I feel like I'm like hosting the VMAs or something. We're just like pitching it to halfway across the country. This is great. Fred and Josh from Charon Comics. Thanks for being here, guys. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
So, Charon Comics. Right off the bat, what can you tell us about Charon Comics?
I'll let Josh take the lead with this one.
So it was a company that we actually developed about 2 years ago. I had been working on a comic with one of my cousins, and Fred and I had started working together. We actually worked at Verizon. I don't really want to plug them, but so we started working together, and I told him about how I was working on this comic, and he was really interested from there, and we ended up getting together at a Starbucks and just kind of ironing out the first details of Soul Survivor. That was about 2 years ago, and then what we did from there is we just kept on carrying that, and we wanted to build not just an amazing series, but also a company that we could also do many different series and be able to express our writing and express our love for story in many other different ways. So Charon Comics became that forum. It became that overall company that we were gonna move forward with.
Yeah, we also found that in the indie community, there's a lot of great storytelling going on outside of your big three. You got like DC, Marvel, Image, and we felt like we could be that voice for independent comics. So we really wanted to dial into create our own content and kind of put that on a platform that hasn't been out there. So outside of creating our own books, we've been collaborating with other artists on their projects and bringing that under our banner, and couldn't be more excited with the turnout. 2 years in, we have 3 books launching for our Kickstarter, which is live right now, and that third book is actually a collection of 6 books. I think it's 6 total books.
6 stories.
So 6 stories that we've been working on for the past 2 years with different artists, different authors. And then outside of our main sci-fi series, which is Soul Survivor, and then you have Skyland, which is our fantasy series.
That's awesome. Yeah, speaking of your Kickstarter, we got to talk about this because you guys you're amping up a ton of money from people all around the world who are super jazzed about these books. I mean, you guys have been teasing your books on social media. The art is just fantastic. I mean, everything that I've seen from these books, I've read a couple of them, and they are truly excellent books. What can you tell us about your Kickstarter? We're going to put a link down at the bottom in the bio of this video, telling people to go check out your Kickstarter because you're almost there. You reached your max. I think there's only a few days left.
Right now, I think there's 17 days left. So we're actually a little over halfway through, and we've already gotten up to almost 80%. I think we're at like 77, 76%. So 3/4 of the way there in terms of backing. We're doing the Kickstarter mostly for awareness for the properties and also to help with print. So with creating a comic, it's not cheap. So usually the average budget for a comic is around $4,000 per book, right? So that includes lettering, pencils, inking, color. So that's just for creating the book, and not including time that takes to get all that done as well, right? So we have, like I said, we have 3 books that we're launching. So it was, very, very cost. It wasn't necessarily cost efficient, I guess you could say, in terms of creating these books. So we're just asking for a little bit of help in terms of printing them.
Now, as far as the, so as we said, there's going to be Soul Survivor and Skyline being printed. There's also going to be a preview book that we're going to be printing as well, called Tales of Charon. And that is something that we're going to be continuing to do whenever we're coming out with either new series or we want to actually just kind of showcase some new work that we have going on. And both myself and Fred have our own individual books that are in the works right now. I have The Righteous Nun, which is a Western horror, as well, and Frederick has the
Qingxi. So Qingxi is based off of the famous pirate queen, where basically she was one of the first female pirates that she had command of an entire fleet of ships, about 10,000 pirates at her call. So she's one of the strongest female pirates of all time, and there's not a lot of literature out there for her. She's actually briefly in Pirates of the Caribbean for a small period of time. But yeah, there's this crazy character story where she was originally a prostitute, then she ends up marrying this king of this pirate ship, right? And then he dies, she ends up taking over. She kind of invented the pirate code that people live by. And then she's one of the few pirates that actually got to ride off into the sunset. She actually was so strong and powerful that the Emperor of China actually pardoned her and most of her pirates. And
you're giving away the ending.
Well, I mean, it's based off a true story, so you could just. But it's a story. It's kind of my 300, if you will. So it's a historical. It's definitely doesn't follow it, word for word or anything like that. But it's my take on my vision of the way that transpired. And came out really good. We actually collaborated with an artist named Paul Louis Julie. He did The Pack and Johanse, which were 2 best-selling books, and his art style is just out of this world. So I thought it would be a really easy transition to the story. So the first 8 pages are in the anthology book Tales of Charon, and honestly, it's my first solo project, which I'm really excited for. So hopefully it resonates with people.
And with that, with Tales of Charon, what we're planning to do is that these will be free digitally, so be able to actually experience some of our books. So Tales of Charon will actually be free digitally. I think we're going to be having it out at least by December, and then we are also planning on printing those, so we can also hand them out during Comic-Cons when we go and visit and.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what's the page count on that? It's like...
It is almost 60.
So it's about 60 pages. It's going to be a free printed book as well that we'll be handing out.
Actually, 68. It's 68.
So closer to 70 pages. And yeah, it's got a lot of awesome stories in there. So outside of Qingxi, which is the book I wrote, and then you have Josh's book, which is The Righteous Nun, which is that Western horror story. We have 4 other books in there. So we have Soul Survivor, Preview of Soul Survivor, and then we have Preview of Skyline. We have Teos, which Kyle, who actually won our contest on Instagram, illustrated. And then it was written by the best-selling author of God of War Eris, Brandon Chen. And that takes place in the Skyline universe. And it's about 100 years prior to the events of Skyline, but it's still going to tie right into that universe. So it's a huge world, and we keep building it out. And then the next book that we have in there is what's the
Warforged.
Warforged, which is actually a board game. So it's an 8-page comic that leads into a tabletop game that's being developed right now.
That's cool as hell. So, wait, you did an Instagram contest to find an artist for a book? How'd that go?
We've done multiple, actually.
We did 2 so far. So the first one we did was for Skyline issue 2 for somebody to color it, which was Kyle. Loved his work so much that we actually gave him this 8-page short for Teos, which is the character of the book, which takes place in the Skyline universe, written by Brandon Chen. But he did such a great job that we actually greenlit him to do a full book, and he's actually going to be taking over duties for Skyline. because we just fell in love with his art style. So it has it's going to stay true to the Skyland feel, but it's going to be, I think you're going to enjoy it. If you enjoyed Skyland issue 1, you're going to enjoy Skyland issue 2 that much more.
I did. You guys actually sent me a copy of Skyland issue 1, and it was awesome, man. That was such a fun book. There's a whole universe to tell. I mean, there's a whole world in that Skyland universe to tell. And I gotta say, because you sent me Skyland, I read that. I read Soul Survivor, which knocked my socks off. We're gonna get into Soul Survivor in just a second, if you don't mind. But you guys are really good at cliffhangers. The 2 books that you sent me ended so cliffhangery. I was like, God, like how long do we have to wait before we get more of these books?
So in terms of like cliffhangers, so in our writing style, we try to make it like episodic. So one thing that irritates me more than anything is all these relaunches. You have like DC Rebirth, you have Marvel going back to, every year it seems like they're just restarting these stories. And we take a different approach. We figure let's just tell the story one time and make it kick ass. You know what I mean? So we, in terms of these cliffhangers, we want the readers to be engaged and want to turn that page. It's a page turner. So we want them to be engaged, and then when that second issue comes, they can't wait for it. And then until we get to that resolution, I'm not saying every book's gonna have a cliffhanger, but we're trying to master that art.
And every issue is they're all continuing on. So we, in some ways, like a graphic novel, these comic books are, and we want to just continue the stories almost where they can leave off. Sometimes we'll maybe jump a little bit in the timeline, but for the most part, that's where we feel that the flow of the story works. With Soul Survivor, right after the ending, we're going to be going just in the second issue. We're going to go right into the next few seconds as to what happens. Yeah. So it's just kind of how we even, I think, wrote it. With each issue, we planned out where it was going to go, and it took along. It ended up being a timeline.
And we actually had to download software.
Yeah.
We have this timeline software that we're using to keep everything accurate and historically accurate. So we use it for Skyland, we use it for Soul Survivor. Especially Skyland, because this spans right now over 800 years. I mean, from the beginning of Skyland issue 1, plus you throw in Teos, and then you have Skyland. So it has this crazy long timeline of a lived-in universe. One thing that we're trying to do is we want the reader to grow with the story, so we don't want to do heavy, this is kind of what happened and all this stuff. So in terms of Skyland, we figured the best way to convey the past was through that story in the beginning, which you can see the preview of that in our Kickstarter, so that's not a problem. But so it's just like a quick little, this is some history of the universe, and let's get right into it, because we have so much story to tell, and we don't want to waste any time.
Yeah, you guys do, man. You got a ton of stories. I mean, each one of your books is a massive universe in and of itself. And I mean, you just told us about damn near a dozen books that you guys are working on. I mean, Charon's huge, man. I mean, how do I put this and not be a jerk? I read your content, and it's right up there with every Image book you read. I mean, the quality is fantastic. A lot of times you go to comic book conventions, and in independent comic book companies, I don't want to impugn anybody's work, but sometimes they seem a little maybe beginnerish. But you guys are coming in hot. I mean, everything. This stuff is the highest quality indie book I've ever seen. I mean, Soul Survivor and Skyland.
Really appreciate
it's amazing. I mean, the art is top notch, especially with Soul Survivor. We can talk about Soul Survivor for just a second. The characters in that book are amazing. I mean, it's like Descender meets Halo. It's this incredible book with characters that you instantly love. I mean, you fall in love with these alien characters. I don't know. I can't say enough about Soul Survivor. How long have you guys been working on Soul Survivor? How long has this been in the can for you guys?
Well, we've been working. So I mean, we're going on almost 2 years now, to be honest. So we started by writing the first part of the book in a coffee shop, which then transitioned. We got the story idea settled in the coffee shop, Then we hammered out like the character bios. So we created the world first. After we created the world, then we created the characters, and then we just let them loose into this crazy world that we built. We thought that was the best approach to do. We had an idea. Believe it or not, Josh actually had a crazy dream.
Yeah.
Which I'll let you talk about. But.
Yeah, so I had a dream, and there's actually a scene. One of the panels in Soul Survivor is based off of that dream, and it's actually where the main character wakes up, and he is in a field of bodies, and I know it's kind of sounds a little bit crazy. Maybe I should go see a therapist about it, but it was something as a visual. I found that to be very intriguing, and we kind of just kind of started it, and then we skyrocketed from there.
Like the questions that arose was, why is he in a field of dead bodies? Why is he just waking up? Why was he knocked out? Who like, where is he? What's he feeling? So it was just kind of like, all right, let's tell a story around this crazy freaking dream, and it just turned into this super in-depth. I mean, we have character bios going back from like for years for each of these characters. And we put so much work into really fleshing out the characters before we even started writing the story that once we started writing the story, we knew these characters like the back of our hand.
Yeah, we had to include everything about the character before we even started writing. So we included their fears, we included like their faults, things that they do positively, how they're going to actually speak and interact with other characters. Like all those things were actually developed before writing the book, so that way that's why I think that you were able to get that sense of these characters exist, that it's almost like they're real like people, because we had to flesh out that full amount of detail.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's top quality work. The best indie book I've seen in years. Any 2018 plans? Actually, the big question for all of our Chicago viewers: are you guys coming to C2E2? Are you going to have a booth in April 6th through the 8th, I think it is? Any chance you coming to Chicago?
So, us personally, we might be, but I know our books will most likely be there. So we have a partnership with Source Point Press. They're one of the largest independent comic book publishing companies in the country, which is huge. So we have a deal in place with them where they're going to be actually taking our books out on the East Coast with them to all the different conventions, and then we're going to be doing the same on the West Coast. So they're based over there on the East Coast, we're here on the West Coast. So with our combined efforts, you'll see both our products at every convention, hopefully in the country. So that's the idea, and we're going to try to do that to the best of our abilities. And then also, we're looking to get into comic book shops. We're looking to get into Barnes & Noble, things of that nature. So hopefully our books will be everywhere, but in terms of, we don't have a list of all the conventions we're hitting just yet, but we will be uploading that, probably within the next week or two, once we, start.
I hope you guys come to Chicago, because if you've never been to C2E2 before, it's a massive convention. It's right up there with New York. It's not quite San Diego, but it's a massive convention. So even if, you're going to have a presence, but I mean, you should come regardless, because it's a lot of fun.
We'd love to. If we can, we will.
Cool.
Hey, if we can stay with you.
And you can stay with Chuck Load of Comics. You can stay on our couch. Cool. Sounds like you got a lot of stuff coming up in 2018, man. Last question to both of you. Joshua, what's your favorite comic of all time?
Oh, man. So Alan Moore is my favorite author of comics and graphic novels. I'd say V for Vendetta actually struck a huge chord for me. It was during a time that I hadn't really developed a lot of my ethics yet, and knowing, obviously murder isn't a good ethic to really talk about.
What are you telling me, bro?
But there were certain aspects of it that just that drew me in, as it had to do more with the government. It had to do more with really understanding that it's about people should be running the government, not the government running its people, and that kind of mindset really took me far, and it also creatively, I think, was able to really be a huge influence on my own writing and how I want to portray my characters within these worlds. So I think that was my favorite for sure.
Cool. V for Vendetta. Fred, favorite book?
All right, man, that's a tough one. I mean, the obvious answer for me, I mean, I could probably spew out a couple.
Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars.
I'm a Star Wars tattoo, Star Wars. I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars fanatic, and I collect all the Star Wars comics. I mean, I just picked up the original #1, which was a huge find for me, which I couldn't be happier with. But in terms of comics, let's see, past favorite would be 300. I'm just a nut for history, and I love that book. I don't know if you ever got a chance to read 300 in actual comic form, but it's a beautiful book, and it just reads so well. It seems like you're watching the movie in your hand, and I was just kind of blown away at that, which also inspired me to get into historical dramas, like Shang-Chi, and then I'm working on a couple others that I can't really talk about just yet, but that one. And then also, if we're talking about new comics, I'm really digging X-Men Gold and Blue that's out right now. Some of that is, now granted, it's a relaunch kinda, but it ties into the history of X-Men, and it's good to see Marvel getting back on the X-Men trail, because that whole who has the rights for the movies, and they killed off all their characters, and it's good to see them actually bringing X-Men back in the fold, which is my favorite superhero books, if you will. But yeah, 300 and the new X-Men Gold and Blue is just, in my opinion, huge. Love those books. And then obviously Soul Survivor, because not just because I wrote it, but
that was going to be my answer as well.
I love rereading.
Yeah.
It's as if we didn't write it and we just kind of
Yeah,
it.
it's
Man, who wrote this?
It's a damn good book, man. Soul Survivor. I mean, I've been talking about it to everybody I can talk about it to, and like my guys at Chicago Comics, man. I'm telling them about this book. It's that good. It's fantastic. And people need to find out about it. So go check out the Kickstarter, right? I mean, you also have a website, CharonComics.com. And yeah, man, find out about all these amazing, amazing books. But go to the Kickstarter. That's the most important thing. Give them your money, because it's worth it. Every single penny. Lay your money down on the table, slide it across, and say, I want to read Charon Comics, especially Soul Survivor, especially Skyland, because it's the only two that I've read so far. But Chrysalis. I wanted to ask you about Chrysalis. Is Chrysalis, it's a prequel, right, to Soul Survivor?
Yeah. So Chrysalis is, we haven't really talked about it much, just because it's one of those things where we're going to drop it and hopefully blow everybody's mind. So
timing is everything for that one, because we're starting Soul Survivor off, and it is a prequel series to Soul Survivor, so we don't really want to just drop that without people really getting involved with Soul Survivor first, and we want them to kind of feel for these characters going backwards too. So
yeah, so in terms of Chrysalis, I mean, that series is being illustrated by Joey Lee Cabral, and whereas Soul Survivor is being illustrated by Daniel Pez Lopez, and both amazing. They actually worked together in the same studio, which is kind of crazy. So Joey, we gave him this story. It's the prequel series to Soul Survivor, and it's going to be a 6-issue arc. It's basically the formation of the Chrysalis starship. So you have that ship that lands in issue 1 of Soul Survivor, which I'm not going to get into too much details here, but
God, I want to talk about it, damn it. I want to talk Soul Survivor.
That ship that lands is the Chrysalis crew. So what this 6-issue prequel series is going to be is the formation of that crew. How Alistair, which is the captain, finds the ship, forms the crew, and then the different personalities, really even more so fleshing out these characters, so that way when you reread Soul Survivor, you have this amazing backstory on this crew that you get to meet throughout the series. So it's honestly, it's being colored by the same guy who did Soul Survivor. The art it's very, I mean, I would almost compare it. It's gritty, and it's these books are not for a young audience in terms of content. They're very Skyland for sure.
Skyland's wholesome.
But Chrysalis and Soul Survivor are very mature audience, and we use a lot of mature words, issues, like events. Like, it's a war story. It's a war story. It's about Soul, who is the last human, right? And it's his story of revenge. He wakes up, he finds out that everybody's dead, and it's his story really for revenge, and you can't really tell that and be PG-13. So we didn't want to hold back on this one, and we understand that, you know, that younger audience might not be able to get into it, but when they're older, they'll appreciate it, just because it's not meant for the faint of heart. It's meant for people that want grit. It's basically the best way I can describe it is Saving Private Ryan meets Firefly meets Count of Monte Cristo. Like, that's like, mix those three things together, you got Soul Survivor. And it's a story of revenge and death, and it's brutal. But at the same time, we don't rely heavily on the action. We have a story to tell. So
that's cool. Well, I know you guys got things you got to be doing in San Diego right now, so we really appreciate you stopping by, telling us all about everything. Everybody, please go to the Kickstarter. It's we got a link down in our in the description of this video. Check them out. Lots of cool stuff on there. Give them your money. Get yourself a copy of these books because they're absolutely fantastic. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chuck.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate it, Chuck. And we'll definitely be in touch. We love your show, and I'm glad we could be on it.
I was going to say, in 17 days, I want you guys to come back and let us know, did you hit your Kickstarter goal? And yeah, just give us an update on where you guys are at.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And be happy to, once the book's out, talk about it. Spoiler heavy.
Yeah. I'd love nothing more than to sit around and talk about you guys' books. Fully spoilered out. Spoilered to hell and back. So, cool. Well, thanks, guys. We'll see you in a few days, in a few weeks.
Yeah.
And everybody,
awesome.
thanks for watching. Thanks for checking out Chuckload of Comics. I think this is episode 35. And again, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do. And check out the Kickstarter for Charon Comics down there in the bio. So we'll see you here next week, next Sunday. Have a good night. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching. We got a lot of other good shows on the YouTube channel, so check them out. We got like that one and that one. Lots of good stuff. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button for more episodes every single week. See you later.